Hare Krishna, welcome to a new video here in my studio. Today we are honored to have His Holiness Bhakti Rasayana Sagara Maharaj here, who will tell us his story, how he joined, and gives us some insight into his realization and wisdom and of his very long practice of Krishna-Consciousness. You joined in the beginning of the 90s or?
89.
89 already,
yeah.
So this is already some time. So we are very happy that you are here. And
thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, you are coming originally from Russia.
Yeah.
And your main preaching field or field of activity is now expanded. So because you speak very nice English, so the world is open to you. So where are your other fields of activity for the Krishna Consciousness movement?
Well, specifically, I'm focusing on education and training, as well as building networks which would be helpful in achieving the first purpose of ISKCON, which is very broad and very ambitious, because it's to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large and educate all peoples. And that's correct English, because peoples means many nations, all the nations basically of the world, in the techniques of spiritual life, and to check the imbalance of values in life, which stands for helping people practically with their problems and achieve real unity and peace in the world. So it's very interesting that the very first purpose of ISKCON is non-denominational and very broad, and aims at something which no one ever could achieve in Kali Yuga especially. So, but there are possibilities for achieving it, and so we are working with like-minded people and groups connected to United Nations also.
Oh, I see. Here you have a very interesting mission, so to say. And how do you think, before we go into your spiritual life, because now we kind of start in this direction, how do you see this universal approach to Krishna consciousness, which in one sense is what Prabhupada wanted? He wanted to present it for the whole world, but at the same time we are very specific and very traditional in one sense, and geographically oriented as Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So how do you see that this specific tradition can be of universal value for the world?
Yeah. Well, I see our personal spiritual practices as our private business, so to say. And our first purpose of ISKCON is our service to the world, to the society, because we cannot expect everyone to shave up and follow four-regulative principles and chant. Yeah, chant 16 rounds a day. That's a bit too ambitious, too unrealistic. But we need to establish a system to help the entire society to move forward or upward according to the dharmic principles, which are four. We understand Satyadaya Tapashuchi, which stands for truthfulness, compassion, austerity, and purity.
So you see, like, a moral base should be developed before we can really go into more specific spirituality.
Well, this is what the very beginning of Bhagavatam describes, that Tadarajastamo bhavo kamalobadesche chatayatarvan anavidham stita sattva prasidati, that if one is in the process of spiritual development, then one will definitely overcome the lower modes, passion and ignorance, and lust and greed, and will establish oneself in the mode of goodness. And then evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavad tattva vigyanam was that mukta sangasya jayate. And Prabhupada often quoted these verses, as well as many other acharyas, that only in the mode of goodness, with clear mind, with peaceful mind, prasanna manaso, one can engage oneself in Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga. And become free from material conditioning. So yeah, mode of goodness is very important because no house can stand without foundation, and we can see in our own society devotees try to jump over the mode of goodness and get themselves into transcendence, but many times these attempts were not successful.
Would you equate a moral lifestyle with this sattva guna? Is this kind of the same, or where is it overlapping?
Yeah, morality is also part of sattva guna.
So you mentioned the United Nations, so which is kind of a leader organization for the world. So if we have connections there, it's very possible that we can communicate this to the rest of the people. So we can see that there's a turn towards a sattvic lifestyle, so a propagation of vegetarian lifestyle, which comes from the United Nations. But which other developments would you see in this organization which we can further, or which are also on where we want to help?
Yeah, well, something which was very much highlighted by previous acharyas like Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and Prabhupada vigorously worked on this, was cooperation of faiths, different faith traditions working together in the same direction. And we can see Srila Prabhupada was regularly meeting with different faith leaders, and he was regularly telling them, why can't we work together on promoting God consciousness? You have your tradition, I have my tradition, you have your names for God, we have our names for God, but at the end he is one. Mm-hmm. And there is a very interesting letter Srila Prabhupada wrote to the Pope, in which he requests him for the same thing, mm-hmm. working together. So Prabhupada envisioned that cooperation, and Srila Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, he was one of the co-founders of United Religions Initiatives, which is at the moment the biggest interfaith network in the world, having more than 1,000 they call cooperation circles. And interestingly enough, before Maharaj departed, they had a meeting amongst the leaders, amongst the founders, founding members, and they were thinking of having global summit. And they were discussing where to hold this global summit. Of course, there were like ideas, maybe to hold it in San Francisco, or Mecca, or Jerusalem, or other prominent places. And then Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj suggested Mayapur. Mm-hmm. And no one could take it seriously because, comparing to all these other places, who knows Mayapur somewhere in Bengali village, in West Bengal. But then it so happened that he left his body soon after the meeting. And when they held next meeting, it was his memorial meeting. And they remembered this was his last wish. And so they decided to honor his proposal to actually do that, mm-hmm. and gather together in Shridham Mayapur. And so it happened in 2008. Mm-hmm. Faith leaders from more than 100 countries gathered together in there, and I think they've got special blessings from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because they started growing leaps and bounds.
Okay.
And yeah, it's a network specifically designed for collaboration rather than just dialogue.
Mm-hmm. So how does this cooperation look like? What can we understand?
Well, devotees are already doing certain things in collaborative manner with other faiths. I know some examples, like in Australia, devotees they wanted to develop Food for Life program, and the officials, they told them that we don't really have needy or hungry people roaming on the streets. That was in Melbourne. Mm-hmm. but we do have a need to have meals on wheels for disabled people and for elderly people who cannot walk and who cannot cook for themselves. And these people, they lived in different locations in the city, so it required number of cars with drivers to do the delivery, which devotees could not afford. But then the devotee who is heading the communications in Australia, Bhakti Prabhu, he had quite friendly relationship with one Christian group, and he approached them and he said this was the request, and we can cook but we cannot deliver, so would you be able to help us? And they said, sure, we've got plenty of cars and plenty of drivers who can deliver your meals. And so devotees were cooking and Christians were delivering. And another example of collaboration in Japan, also based on Food for Life, and serving the victims of disaster after Fukushima nuclear plant started creating troubles, and devotees were collaborating with with one Hindu group, which is Art of Living. And not just Food for Life, but also other programs, social programs, like in Russia, devotees have this interesting project which they call Common Concern. And the concern is degradation of the society and specifically substance abuse. And one professor took it up and he said, it's a complete lie and propaganda that Russians are into drinking. Russians were made to drink because of the promotion of alcohol through the social media and etc. And in many points in history, the Russia was completely sober. They were like, their drinking levels were way below the minimum levels anywhere else in the world. And so he said, the situation can easily be reversed. And so then he attracted the attention of Russian Orthodox Church, and then the devotees made friends with that professor, and he also invited them to take part. And so through this professor, devotees started working together with Russian Orthodox Church in making Russia sober again, which is very interesting. And of course, devotees are working on, help people to stop these habits, substance abuse, but then they give them prevention measures, which ultimately lead to spiritual practices. So, it's not just treating people, but also helping them to start their spiritual life.
Something like Anonymous Alcoholics.
It's a little bit different. They scare people by showing them what's happening with their bodies and brains due to substance abuse and certain information that I didn't know, and it was really shocking to know that all these substances, they actually attack the brain as the first target. That's why people feel high. And brain cells, once they are destroyed, they don't recover. That's it. We've got only one brain for life, and if it's destroyed, it's finished. And so, and horrible things. They show how all these different diseases develop due to substance abuse. So they scare people like anything. And then people, understand, I want to give it up. So they help them to give it up. But then devotees give them also spiritual practices.
So if there's like a systematic plan how to do this?
Yeah.
And this is developed by the devotees? Yeah,
devotees present their programs. Of course, Christians present their program.
Oh, it's a cooperation between both groups.
And there are other like in number of places devotees had like joint cultural programs with other faiths. So cooperation is happening on a smaller scale, but we want to increase it and make it more popular.
On that point, I would have a question. I don't know if you want to answer or want to answer in detail. Maybe it's too controversial, but the situation right now in Russia with the very suppressing attitude towards other religions, especially the Orthodox Church, seems to be a bit aggressive through the politics to get rid of possible opponents or alternatives in future. So is this on a higher level, so where we are not so far, because you said we want to come to a higher level of cooperation? So is there like local levels which is okay, but on the bigger level it's not happening? Or why is the Orthodox Church there so inimical?
Well, I mean, this is the biggest denomination in the country, and that's why they are promoting the idea one nation, one faith. Of course, they cannot stop other larger denominations, especially Muslims, because Muslims, they don't allow themselves to be put down, as we know. Or Buddhists and Jews, they also have been accepted as traditional faiths, but now there is a big kind of discussion about the devotees, because the attempts have been made to present devotees as pseudo-Hindus, as, you know, some tradition which is made up and which never existed, and that the devotees are not really accepted by traditional, you know, Vaishnavas and Hindus, and we are trying to prove that it is a wrong perception. But ultimately, the entire resistance to our presence is in terms of promoting or propagating our religious beliefs to other people, but there is no limit, or there is no objection to us doing something which is socially valuable for people, and or culturally or educationally, and actually through those channels it's much easier to make people into devotees, so to say, because it helps to develop long-lasting relationships with them, which is actually the prerequisite for someone taking Krishna consciousness seriously.
So maybe this suppression is something good for the devotees, that they have to rethink and find new strategies, which in the end maybe are even more successful.
Yes, we believe that whatever is happening is sanctioned by Krishna, and it's always for our benefit.
So amongst the devotees in Russia, there's not, maybe in the beginning was a bit of a shock or readjustment, but in general it's not making them more, takes their enthusiasm away or something. So how is their mood amongst the devotees?
Yeah, that the devotees are actually finding new ways to connect with people, which is good. That this kind of, it's a very healthy pressure.
Healthy pressure.
For the devotees, yeah.
And now, as you explained a bit about your work, maybe we come now to your story, how you became a devotee, which is always interesting. I have many devotees, senior devotees here who tell us their story, and it's always very interesting how it happened. So we are very interested how it happened in your situation, your case.
Yeah. Well, I always believed in God, but I was not really satisfied with explanations given by Bible or Quran, looked into Buddhist teachings as well, and it was really hard to kind of put the picture, see the full picture, because I always had these questions since my childhood, you know, like, is there life on other planets, and is there end to this universe, and what's happening beyond it, and who am I? Kind of subconsciously knew that it's not my first life, etc., and I am something beyond the body, but you know, hardly any scripture was given clear answers. Plus it was former Soviet Union, in which spiritual knowledge was suppressed quite substantially, and I was looking for answers in alternative sources, but they were not really available besides communist propaganda materials against the cults which existed, as they claimed, only in the Western countries. But I was hoping that maybe through those materials I can find some interesting information for myself.
You were not scared by it, you were rather interested and found this as a source of information.
Yeah. Yes, because my family suffered from communists quite substantially. We actually lost everything, and my great-grandfather was killed because he was quite prominent person in society. And
I'd like to ask, prominent as what? What was his role in there in society?
Well, he was kind of a chief in one village or township. He was the main man, and
kind of a mayor, or
can't exactly say what was the position, but yes, something like had a lot of influence, and he was the richest man in there. And when the communists started conquering, they told him that he has to submit all his wealth to them. He has to give all his wealth away, and he knew that they are like real criminals. They're robbers. So if he won't do that, they will kill all the family members. So he told everyone to give everything away to them just to get rid of them. And they gave like huge trunk full of gold and different gemstones and all. And but their conclusion was, if they gave that much away so easily, he must have much more. So they started torturing him to find out if he has more, but he actually didn't have more. But then he died due to tortures like that. But at least the family was spared. So like that. So in our family, there was no any sympathy for communists at all. And so I knew that these guys are demons, And so whatever they were telling, I didn't believe one thing, of course, because I knew the truth. And, from my grandmother and all, who were witnessing all the atrocities they were performing to establish themselves. And later I've read books which, were historical accounts, how tens of millions of their own people were killed in order to establish themselves, establish their dictatorship. And Lenin was the worst terrorist in the history of the world, actually, whose speeches were all like, kill, 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 make the entire country drown in blood. So that was his thing.
And Stalin was the one who executed it, more or less, or?
Yeah, he followed the same party line, so to say. So, these were like terrorists. And then I was looking for spiritual knowledge, and then I found one brochure which was describing different cults in the West, and I was specifically curious about one article, and because this article was really hostile. I mean, the group which was described, the article started with the statement that this particular cult is the worst of all, because there are no normal people at all. Everyone is completely crazy, because they don't even dress like normal people. Men are wearing bed sheets and ladies are wearing curtains. Men are shaving their heads but not fully shaved, like part of the heads remain unshaved, and then they smear dirt on their foreheads, and looking like that they come out to the streets and they harass people on the streets, trying to sell them books no one can understand. And harassing people to give them money, and if no one gives them any money, they become frustrated, and out of their frustration they start shouting or murmuring meaningless words. And then the quote was giving Hare Krishna, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And I was thinking, that's very interesting that the author seems to hate this particular group the most. And obviously it's like total exaggeration, because if these people are completely crazy, the four agota principles were mentioned as the sign of madness. These people are completely lost their minds because they don't drink Russian vodka. Something must be totally wrong with them. But I was thinking that crazy people would never be able to follow any discipline. But this particular group, they follow very strict discipline. So they cannot be crazy. Plus, if they are crazy, they might shout meaningless words. But why do they shout exactly the same words? So these words must have meaning. So actually, yes, this article served completely opposite purposes. And I wanted to find out more who these Hare Krishnas are. And then, actually, at the time, most of the devotees were in jail.
Or which year was that, approximately?
Maybe 85. And so, yeah, most of the devotees were prosecuted or in jail, and that's why they were underground. It was very hard to connect with them because they were very careful about contacting other people, contacting members of public. And I started asking my friends who were in kind of, you can say, alternative circles. That was St. Petersburg, which is like cultural capital of Russia, that if they know any Hare Krishnas. And one of my friends said, yeah, I have contacts with them, but they won't be connecting with you directly because they are highly prosecuted in the country. I was really glad to find out that they are in Russia.
You weren't afraid to, because if they were like dangerous, to connect with them?
Well, I mean, at that time myself, I was kind of rebel against the communist regime. I wanted to do something for God, so I figured out that these guys are demons. And if I do something to free the country from their influence, that's going to be my service to God. I was thinking like that. So yeah, I was kind of a political freedom fighter, and I didn't mind whatever happens to me. I was thinking that even if I'm killed or put in jail, it's okay. It's going to be sacrifice.
You were trying some other political or other movement before that? Was there something going on in your field?
Well, yeah, something. I was kind of spreading the anti-propaganda against the communist propaganda, and yeah, I was nearly put in jail for that. And anyway, it's a side story. But when I found out that Hare Krishnas are in Russia, then I asked my friend, how do I find out more? He said, well, they have books. And I said, yeah, could I get those books? And he said, okay, I'll bring you something. So he brought a couple of small books. I read them. I think first one was Easy Journey to Other Planets. And I've noticed, I couldn't understand much, of course, because there were so many unfamiliar Sanskrit terms. But yeah, yoga and karma, these were all very interesting things for me. And I noticed that this book is referring to Bhagavad Gita. So I asked him that Bhagavad Gita seems to be the main book, the source. So do they have that Bhagavad Gita? And his face actually changed. He said, that's really dangerous. This book, we could both get in jail for a long time if we touch that book.
Wow.
I said, at least could you bring it for me to see. So he agreed after long time pleading. So then he brought Bhagavad Gita, and after I opened it, it was exactly what I was looking for. Like everything is so clearly defined. What is karma? What is reincarnation? What is yoga, consciousness, soul, God, everything. I started asking him, like, if you lend me this book just for a few days, I'll pay you anything you want for it. He said, no, it's too dangerous. I can't do it. So he took the book away. And then I was trying so hard to find Bhagavad Gita for myself, but it was not available. And it took me about 3 years. I was looking for Bhagavad Gita. And then I gave up. I was thinking, okay, it will never happen. But then I was walking down the street somewhere, and then someone approached me and told me, one man, that I have some interesting books you might want to look at. And I said, what about Bhagavad Gita? He said, yeah. And he pulled out the same edition. I was like so happy. And I was thinking that it would cost me fortune. But then he quoted ridiculously small price because I was ready to pay anything. So I was like thinking, oh, this man is crazy. He's just giving away such a valuable book for nothing. Because I had no idea about book distribution back then. So I was really excited, and I was reading Bhagavad Gita and finding some, deep passages, and then inviting my friends and reading with them and discussing. Some friends I've lost because of that. Because, like, one friend, he was from Jewish background, and he worked very, very hard trying to get enough money to immigrate to Israel. And I just happened to read to him the passage which describes people who are working very hard like asses. And after hearing that purport, he got so upset. He said, so your book is telling me that I'm an ass, so I don't want to know you. I don't want to know this book. So he got really offended. And but some did appreciate. Then one of our friends, he was son of a minister, some kind of, his father held very high position. And he had like really luxurious house with, like antique furniture and original paintings by some famous, whoever artists on the walls. And, his father was fabulously rich, and he was inviting his friends and giving them like really expensive gifts and, cutting like very high profile that he's like part of aristocracy and all, like showing up before his friends. And then but he was really well educated. He was into philosophy. You could hold conversation with him on any topic. So I was thinking he would be interested in Bhagavad Gita. So I brought my Bhagavad Gita, and I said, I have Bhagavad Gita with me. Would you like to discuss it? And he said, what is Bhagavad Gita? And I was surprised. I said, philosophy so well, but this is most prominent book of Indian philosophy, spiritual philosophy. And he was embarrassed. He said, I never even heard the title Bhagavad Gita. What is the book? And I gave him the copy to see, and he opened it, and of course he saw the Sanskrit, and that it's such a deep scientific work, academic presentation. He was very respectful, especially because this was kind of illegal printing, underground printing, which added the kind of charm to it.
So he was also into the revolution, or
kind of
as a son of the minister?
Yeah, funny enough, he was kind of in the same mood. more or less. And then he started reading. He opened somewhere in the middle, and it was very interesting how his face changed. And first he was curious, then he seemed to be disturbed, and then at the end he was like angry. And he said, "Who is this Krishna anyway?" I said, "Well, Krishna is God." And he started shouting. He said, "If Krishna is really God," and then like he never shouted. He was very soft spoken, and like he presented himself as like top class aristocrat. But then he started swearing and shouting and swearing. He said, "If Krishna is really God, blah blah blah, then he should be more modest and not to advertise himself like he does in here." And all of us were shocked. So I took the book and we just left. And for us it was very strange experience, as if like he became ghostly hunted or something, just on the spot like that. And later I realized what happened, because he happened to open the book on chapter 9 or 10 maybe, and of course Krishna speaks about his opulences in there. I'm the taste of water, I'm the fire, I'm this and that, I'm the ability in man. And he felt challenged, because until that point he was thinking he is God.
He's the best in everything, and
yeah, but then he faced real God. And that envy, just bursted out. That's very interesting. Bhagavad Gita works like a litmus test for people, really showing everyone's true colors. And later I learned from my spiritual master, Srila Swami, how Prabhupada was saying that Krishna-Consciousness is acting on human society in the same way as lemon juice is acting on milk. Because, milk is divided into whey and curd. And so when people come in touch with Krishna-Consciousness, then they divide themselves into demons and divine. Like before that, the whole society is like very homogeneous. No matter who people are, they try to behave in a standard way. But when they come across Krishna consciousness, their true natures come out. So that was a very interesting experience. Anyway, I was reading Bhagavad Gita, and then I was really young. I was just maybe 17, 18, something like that. And I was into like enjoying a lot. I was not like planning to strictly like renounce everything and follow regulative principles. I was thinking that chanting Hare Krishna is a good thing. I learned the mantra not just from the book, but some of my friends, they, even though they were not devotees, but they were experimenting how the Hare Krishna mantra works, and they were all telling me that it's really amazing. Once you start chanting Hare Krishna, so many things will start happening in your life. So I've decided, okay, let me give it a try. And I've started chanting. And first I was very skeptical. I was thinking, like the 3 words, what can they do? And then, but those friends, they were saying, no, these 3 words, they are connected to Krishna, and Krishna is like, he can do anything. He can fulfill any of your desires. And then I thought, okay, I was experimenting. Like one time I got lost in the city and I didn't know in which direction to go. I was supposed to find a friend of mine. I kind of remembered how his house looked like, but I had no idea how to get there. And I didn't know the address either, so I couldn't even ask. And plus it was, 1 in the morning or something. There were no people to even ask. So I was thinking, what do I do? And then I thought, okay, let me start chanting Hare Krishna and let me go somewhere and see if it will work, if I can find the place. In 5 minutes I was in front of the house. And then another time I was hitchhiking. We were kind of hippie, leading hippie life, not full on, but something like that. So at least in summer we would go hitchhiking.
This was in which year? So now you are already further in your search and development. So where are we now, in which year approximately?
Yeah, well, that was little bit before I got Bhagavad Gita. I think maybe a year before I got Bhagavad Gita.
Okay, so we made a jump back, so to say, in the chronology.
Yeah,
now.
I've started experimenting with Hare Krishna mantra,
okay.
And then at the same time looking for Bhagavad Gita. But this is how my faith really developed, by trying to chant Hare Krishna mantra. Yeah, I was hitchhiking and no one wanted to stop. And mostly like the truck drivers would stop. No other people would do that. And at the time, like, I spent more than 2 hours, even the truck drivers would not stop. And it was getting late and I was like in the middle of nowhere. And I was pretty desperate. And before that, I was kind of trying to practice telepathy, controlling other people's thoughts like that with my thoughts. But it didn't really work. I couldn't really succeed with that. And I was thinking, just standing there and hitchhiking, that if I would be, accomplished with my telepathy, I would actually force one driver to stop and pick me up. And then I thought, what about Hare Krishna mantra? Will it work with Hare Krishna? And then I started chanting Hare Krishna, and there was one regular car approaching, and I was looking at the driver of the car, approaching car, and in my mind I was telling him, you have to stop and pick me up, and then chanting Hare Krishna all the while. And I didn't even raise my hand, but the car stopped. And the driver, I opened the door, and the driver seemed to be like really tense.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really obvious that he didn't really want to stop, but something made him stop. And he said, so you need a lift? I said, yeah. And then he was pretty tense all the way. So I realized it's Krishna somehow made him stop.
Powered your telepathy.
Well, I realized it was not my power, because it only worked with Hare Krishna mantra. Anyway, then, after I've got Bhagavad Gita, and I became like really excited. And then there was one friend who was like also pretty serious about Krishna consciousness. And then we decided, okay, let us try to escape through the borders of Russia or Soviet Union and try to go to India. Because Bhagavad Gita is from India, mantra is from India, so India is our destination.
Would that have been possible, or how dangerous would have that been?
Oh, that was like not really possible, because we were trying to walk all the way to India, because Russia doesn't really have direct borders with India. If you look at the map, there is a kind of stripe of Afghanistan first, and then stripe of Pakistan, and it's all in the range of Himalayas. And then Srinagar, I think, is the first city in India, but it's still in Himalaya mountains. So what we were thinking, will cross Himalayas by walk. We just looked at the map and we thought, okay, on the map it didn't look that much. Cross 2 countries and go into the 3rd country. So somehow, and because we figured out that the mountains would not be so highly guarded. And so we could, cross the borders in the mountains. So we went also hitchhiking. We went all the way to Central Asia, where the Afghanistan border was. And Hare Krishna mantra really worked. That all the way through, people would support us, pay for us and feed us and accommodate us and everything. And then we arrived to Central Asia, and again someone picked us up and put us in their house, and it was amazing. And then I needed to, and by the time we developed such a strong faith in Hare Krishna mantra that we would just chant it all the time, pretty much. If it would not be like audible, the Hare Krishna mantra would be in our minds like that. And then I needed to buy something, and I went out for shopping. But then I was passing by some really troublesome neighborhood. I had no idea because I'd never been in that place before.
Was it a bigger city or?
No, it was a smaller town.
But still, there was some kind of ghetto or some dangerous area.
Kind of, it was like some gangs were operating there. And I was surrounded by a gang. And they told, anyone who is passing through here has to give us all the money. And so, and I was, when you chant Hare Krishna mantra all the time, something happens to the mind, and you stop perceiving the reality as we perceive it normally, and you start seeing everything as a kind of theater. Everyone's playing their roles, but they're not their roles. And it seems to be really funny. I was like walking around and smiling all the time, thinking, like, what's going on in here? Like that. And then when these guys surrounded me, I just couldn't take it seriously. I was thinking, these guys, they, like really trying hard to play villains, and they have no idea who they really are. And I was like looking at them and smiling. But their ringleader, he couldn't understand, why am I smiling? I'm supposed to be scared. So then he pulled out blade and he put it to my neck and he said, I'm going to cut your neck. If you don't give us money, I'm serious, and you have just few seconds. And he's standing like that, pressing blade to my neck. And I'm looking at his eyes. And his eyes are shifting. He could not look straight into my eyes. And I suppose if you have no fear, then if someone has fear, it increases. So he was so nervous. And then I looked at his hand, which was pressing the blade, and his hand was shaking like that. And I was thinking, this guy is trying to scare me, but he's scared to death himself, like how that works. And then it seemed to be so funny that I couldn't control myself. I just started laughing, like looking at his face and laughing. And he got completely shocked. And then he put his hand down and he looked at his friends and he said, this guy is mad. Let's run away from here. And so they just dispersed in different directions. I was thinking, that was even more than a theater. That was a circus. So anyway, I have my business to attend. So I just went to the shop and bought whatever I needed to buy. So, and then we started preparing to go into the mountains. And, I was, let me see, I was 19 and my friend was 20. I mean, this is not the kind of age when people exactly thinking straight. So we decided to prepare for our, journey. We went to the nearby shop and we bought ourselves, couple of pairs of tennis shoes and, laundry robes. This was our mountain equipment.
Laundry robe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this was our mountain equipment, right? Tennis shoes and laundry robes. And then I realized, okay, we would have to go long distance and we would have to eat something which is high in calories because there would be no opportunity to cook in there or find any other food. So it has to be something very light but nutritious. So we bought like few bars of chocolate for the journey. Like that. And then, believe it or not, we just went up in the mountains. And we went up maybe a few 100 meters. And I don't even think we had a compass or anything. It was crazy.
Just wanted to walk through.
Yeah, just chanting Hare Krishna. Yeah. We had a kind of map, but there was no compass, like how we would know which way we go. I mean, this is what I mean, like we were not really thinking straight. We were so convinced that if we just chant Hare Krishna, we don't need anything. Krishna
but you had some convincing experiences before, so it's plausible.
Yeah, I had some justifications to my madness.
Yes.
And then we were going up, and then suddenly, but Krishna was with us all the way through, that was for sure. Suddenly we saw a young woman and she was like running there frantically, and she ran up to us and she said, "Please help me. I've lost my husband in the mountains."
Oh.
And I asked what happened, and she said he's really depressed and I think he went to commit suicide and I can't find him. And, we told her, don't worry, we'll just chant Hare Krishna and Krishna will help us to find him. So we just went somewhere, chanting Hare Krishna, and in 5 minutes we see the guy standing on the cliff, ready to go down.
Wow.
And we started shouting to him, you don't have to worry about your problems. Krishna is here. He will take care of you. You just have to start chanting Hare Krishna. And, he got so confused looking at us, who these guys are, because we were like looking like hippies with long hair and all.
You come in the middle of nowhere suddenly
in the mountains.
Oh.
And then we're running up to him and he's like asking, who are you anyway, who is Krishna and why should he take care of me, and what is this Hare Krishna thing? And then from both sides, because we were so enthusiastic, we started preaching to him, trying to explain to him something about Krishna-Consciousness. And he was like, wait, I can't understand anything here. So let's go down to my house and have a proper chat about it. So we went down with him and we told him the whole thing about Krishna-Consciousness. And first we were like, asking him, what happened to you? Why did you decide to finish your life? And then he told us his story. He said, his boss at work was like really breaking laws and screwing people up. And he decided to report him to the higher boss. But he had no idea that that higher boss was bribed already. So he was fully covering his boss. And instead of taking action, they took action on him and, framed him and put him in jail for a couple of years, or maybe a year or something, whatever, bribed the police and put him in jail. And he said, I served my sentence, but after I got released, I couldn't find any job because they made sure that, no one would take me. And I have no means to maintain my family, so I'm really desperate. And he was like so upset with the communists. He was saying, they're all only saying good things, but in reality, they just screwing people up like anything. It's so corrupt and it's so dishonest. And then we've realized, this guy is completely safe. And we can tell him everything we were planning and he will not, report us. And then he was asking, but who are you anyway? And what are you doing in the mountains? So we just told him everything straight. That we also fed up with this system and we're trying to break away and go through the borders to reach India. And he said, whoa, that's really challenging. And we've told him, yeah, we know, but Krishna is with us and we'll just chant Hare Krishna.
Worked so far.
Huh?
Worked so far.
Yeah.
Huh?
And he said, I can understand your faith and Krishna, that he helps you. It's very good, but you have to be mindful that, it's like so freezing cold up there in the mountains and you're not even dressed properly. How will you survive the cold? There is no place to hide in there. It's just open. And plus, you don't have any equipment. Like the trails in the mountains are so narrow that even mountain goats, they slip and they fall and they die. And so what to speak of you? Like how would you go through those trails with no equipment at all? And plus, there are many, actually before going, we went to one local museum which was displaying the nature of the actually at that side of Himalayas is called Pamir, Central Asian side. And we went to that museum to see who is there up in the mountains, and everybody was there. Bears were there, wolves were there, panthers, tigers, everybody, all kinds of predators, even the birds, like eagles, they looked so ferocious. And I was looking, all the taxiderms were there, and I was looking at all these, like creatures, and I was thinking, oh my God, it's really dangerous in there. But I thought, okay, anyway, we'll go anyway. Let's see what will happen. And he said there are so many of these, wild animals, and they're all hungry there. And so, they would miss the chance to have you for their lunch or dinner, whatever. But he said, even if you survive the cold, even if you will not break your necks there, even if somehow the wild animals will not eat you up, there is the fourth and the biggest dangers, and that is border patrol. Mm-hmm. He said of course they don't stay there because there is nowhere to stay, but on very regular basis they have helicopter and which surveys the entire area, and it's like mountains and snow and whoever, like human beings moving, it's so crystal clear, they can see it. And they don't even land there to find out who are you. If you're just going there in that forbidden territory, it means you're a trespasser, and they just shoot you to kill. And they just leave the bodies there because, nature will take care of it. They just don't care who these people are, they just shoot. And he said, I understand Krishna and everything, but your chances are literally zero. And I was like asking him, so what would be your advice in this situation? And he said, well, I can think of more reliable, more safe option for you to break through the borders. And for that, at least one of you would have to kind of cut the hair and, dress up to look normal. And then there is, if one of you has the driver license to drive trucks, and my friend had one, you might get a job at the truck driving company, and those trucks, they regularly pass by the border. There is one motorway leading through the mountains, actually, going to Afghanistan, and then Pakistan, and actually all the way to India. And he said, when you go near the border, you can just turn to that motorway and break through the border with a truck and just keep going. He said, of course it is guarded. The what you call it, the control point. They're gonna try to chase, and they're gonna try to shoot you from behind, but you have better chances. And I've just imagined that picture, like something from the action movie. And I thought, okay, that's not us. We don't really have chances. So we actually realized it was Krishna who was kind of, helping us to understand it's completely mad idea. You're not gonna, make it through. So we came back, and but then we continued practicing Krishna consciousness, and I was actually drafted into the army, and I started preaching to the fellow soldiers about communists as being demons, and about the importance of developing our relationship with God, etc. And I was already kind of arrested before that by the KGB, and actually they wanted to put me in jail, but then my parents made the arrangement. They said he will go into the army, which was for them the sign that I'm kind of improving. So, but in the army I continued that propaganda, and so then they thought, okay, he had the last chance, he blew it, so we're gonna take serious action on him.
So they caught you in the military. They found out that you speak this subversive.
Yeah. And then they were planning to take pretty heavy action on me. And at that time I was, even though I was prepared for that, but then when it came I was thinking, oh, this is too heavy. And I started praying to Krishna to get out of it. And then actually what happened, the entire Soviet Union collapsed, and Gorbachev came in power, and whatever I was sharing actually became legal, and they had to stop prosecuting me. So and then after I left,
that was a powerful prayer. Destroy the whole Soviet Union.
But I've actually learned later, because for me that was biggest miracle. I was nearly finished,
I guess.
Yeah. But then I've learned later, much later, when I became a devotee, that Srila Prabhupada, when he came to Soviet Union and he looked at what's happening in the country, that the whole country is so poor, and the things he saw, just he just couldn't imagine that it can ever exist in a world that, like he was saying, that even taxi drivers were begging for little extra money because they were so poor. What to speak of everyone else, and nothing was available. There were long queues, lines to buy very basic things like apples or bananas. And for Prabhupada it was completely crazy, people waiting for hours together to buy few bananas. And many times, when their turn comes, all the bananas are finished. And he was thinking, just look what happened to the country when, when there is no God consciousness. And he was like walking with Shyama Sundar, and they came to the Red Square, which is like central place in Moscow, and he saw a huge line, and he was asking Shyama Sundar, are they also selling something special here, some fruits or something? What is this line? And Shyama Sundar said, I'll go and find out. Then he comes back, he said, no, they don't sell anything. It's the line to see the dad's Lenin's body in his tomb. And Prabhupada was so shocked. He said, why are they queuing up to see his dead body? Don't understand, it's just a body. He's not dead. They don't even have the idea that soul, and body are different. So these people are so ignorant. Probably they, want to see that he's really dead because, like someone who screwed up the whole country like that, better he'd be dead.
Actually, I read this a couple of days ago in Shyama Sundar's book.
Oh, yeah.
And when Prabhupada was in the beginning, he went to this hotel where he stayed, and he saw this military parade.
Yeah.
And then he had a tear in his eye, and he said, within 20 years this will be over, and this was 1971.
Yeah. Okay, so. Yeah, and then Prabhupada made this prediction. He said something to the effect that, these people are so miserable because they're bereft of God consciousness, just deprived of God. But when the people of this country will start chanting Hare Krishna, this demonic system will collapse on its own. So he made that powerful prediction, and 14 years later, 15, 16, whatever, few years later, when actually, like by Prabhupada's mercy, quite a few people in former Soviet Union started chanting Hare Krishna, and it happened. So it was actually Prabhupada who made it happen. Yeah. But it happened, it coincided, in such a way that at the point when I needed it the most. So for me, it was like a miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah, but these miracles really do happen by the powerful prayers and predictions of great saints like Srila Prabhupada. And so, then I was released from jail, and I kept chanting Hare Krishna, but I wanted to enjoy life. I was not about to renounce everything, and I just wanted to have tons of money and all types of sense gratification. The only thing I was averse to since my childhood was meat eating. That was crazy. I could never relate to that, eating somebody's dead body. And then I was like very happy to find out that actually I don't have to eat meat. It's totally normal. And I followed that, but nothing else. And then, somehow Krishna arranged things in such a way that I've got plenty of money, more than I could spend. And
was that working or?
No, we were doing business with my father, and my part was just basically, squander all his money. So, and I was like enjoying to the max, restaurants and girls and everything, and casinos, and, tried it all. And some drugs as well, experimented with that. But then I think, because I was doing so much of this, I really burned myself out very quickly, and I got so depressed. And I think, the fact that I was chanting Hare Krishna on the top of that really contributed to that, because I could never really get a taste for all these things, even though I was thinking that this is how I could become happy, but then I was becoming more and more depressed. And plus, in my heart, I just heard this voice that you're just wasting your time. It's not what you should be doing in your life. And I realized it was true, because Bhagavad Gita was also saying the same thing. And then I was thinking, no, this is impossible, that I have to find the devotees. And then I started really praying to find the devotees, but I had no idea how to find them. But then suddenly, in the city, I saw a man with neck beads, and I realized, like only devotees wearing this kind of neck beads. So I came to him and I told him Hare Krishna. And I had no neck beads, nothing, of course. And he got so scared. He thought I'm a KGB. But then I told him that, okay, I'm not a KGB. I'm just, looking for devotees. I'm trying to practice Krishna consciousness. And he was pretty happy, relieved. And he invited me to the home program.
Which town was it?
It was in Georgia, Russian Georgia. It was one coastal city, Suhumi, which suffered a lot due to the civil war. And but at that time it was like tourist paradise place. And then he invited me to the program, but I knew about regulated principles, and I didn't want to go to the program because going to the program for me meant I have to stop everything. But I was not like prepared for that, even though I was so depressed due to sense gratification. But I was still hoping that maybe it will work. And he gave me some prasadam, which I was very happy, and I took their phone numbers to keep in touch. And regularly I was calling the devotees and asking them, like, I'm chanting Hare Krishna, but why am I so miserable? And the devotees were saying, are you following the 4 eggs? I was saying no. And they were saying, this is why you're so miserable, because you are doing exactly what you should not be doing. And I was like, yeah, okay. I guessed it right. And then a couple of more weeks, and I decided, okay, I'm going and to surrender, like give up everything, because I was like completely stuck. And then I went and stopped all the sinful activities and started associating with devotees. And I mean, one interesting thing was that from the very beginning, first time I came to the program, and same devotee I met, and he approached me and he said, are you chanting Hare Krishna? Yeah. I said, yeah, I'm kind of singing Hare Krishna. I had no idea about chanting on beads. He said, but do you chant on beads? I said, are we supposed to chant on beads? I said, yeah, we're all chanting on beads. And then he pulled out beads. He said, you should also chant on beads. And he said, we are all chanting 16 rounds every day. Maybe he didn't mean that I should be chanting 16 rounds.
But you understood it.
But I took it like that. He said, because all of us are supposed to chant 16 rounds. And I thought, okay, maybe it includes me. And he showed me, the way to chant, the way to hold beads and everything. But he never really like chanted japa in front of me, so I had no idea how to chant japa. And next day, I, held the beads and I started chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, and 16 rounds like that. I think it took me like 8 or 9 hours. And by the end, my throat was so sore, and I was crying, not because of ecstasy, but because of pain. And I was thinking how people can torture themselves like that, And for a couple of days I was chanting like that, and I could not wait for another program to come to the devotees and find out what do I do. And then I was so desperate that I came much earlier than the program was scheduled to start. But then there was one devotee who was like sitting somewhere in the corner and quietly chanting Hare Krishna mantra. And I actually saw how one supposed to chant japa, very softly and very swiftly. Then I realized, okay, this is easy, I can do that. So that question was resolved. But then when the program started, of course they had class and kirtan, and then the host, the lady, she made apple pie, and she was asking the elder devotee how I supposed to. She was also new to Krishna consciousness, and she said, I supposed to offer it to Krishna, but how do I offer it? Do I offer like whole pie or just a piece? And he said, yeah, you're supposed to have like unused plate, but you don't have to offer the whole pie. And when she was asking, I was thinking, because I had no idea, I was thinking, if she will offer the whole pie, Krishna will finish it and we'll have nothing for ourselves. But then I was very relieved when he said, you can just offer one piece. And I thought, okay, let Krishna have this piece, we can have the rest. Like that. So this is how my journey basically started from that point onwards.
And this was in which city? This was still this coastal town, Georgia.
Yeah.
This is where you kind of joined. Then you moved in there, or was this was not a temple or something?
I mean, there were no like official temples, but they had a farm community quite close to the city, again in the mountains, funny enough, and very beautiful place, probably as beautiful as here. And they even had a cow, only one cow, but it was nice, and deities and everything. So that farm, quite a large house, was used as a temple. But in the city, I mean, this area used to be quite wealthy area in former Soviet Union, so many people had their own houses and cars, which was like very rare thing in Russia. But in Georgia they did, because they were growing a lot of fruits and selling them, etc., and making wine, etc., so they had a lot of money. And devotees used their houses for the program, so there was no like shortage of opportunities for organizing preaching in that place.
And then slowly after this, Soviet Union fell apart, movement developed and became more public. And because now, for our viewers who might not know, Russia is the biggest yatra, as we say, of the world besides India.
Yeah,
it's incredible what's going on there, and I've never been there, just heard. And I heard yesterday, someone told me that already in Germany, I think 60% of all the devotees have Russian background. Devotees in Germany, which is nice, but of course means we should do something from the German-speaking point of view.
Yeah.
So how must it be then in Russia, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, or somehow Russians are very enthusiastic about Krishna consciousness for whatever reason. It's mysterious, but yeah, not just in Russia, but all over. Like even UK, probably the largest white denomination of devotees in UK is Russian, of Russian origin.
Not British, also not.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can feel a little bit relieved here.
Yeah. So it's the same. America is the same. So
also there, huh?
It's like Indians and then Russians and then everybody else.
Right.
Somehow or other. I don't know why they become so attracted to Krishna consciousness. There are different theories, but nobody knows for sure.
You have a theory which you believe in?
Well, Russia was Vedic. Probably same as other parts of Europe, but it was Vedic quite recently, relatively.
It's not so long ago.
Yeah.
It's more closer to India.
Yeah, probably like just 1,000 years ago, there was full-on Vedic culture in Russia, very well developed, and actually took part. I was invited to one group. They called themselves Slavic Aryans.
I heard about that, yeah.
And they wanted me to teach them Bhagavad Gita because they recognized the connection between Russian Aryan culture and Indian Aryan culture, that it was the same kind of country. I mean, even historians, they know it, that we all, white people, we belong to Indo-European family. So it's the same family, the same people, basically speaking. And so then they were doing their spiritual practices in the morning, and I was like shocked to see how similar it is, not to what we do, but to the traditional Vedic practices in India. Like they do daily fire sacrifice, for example, with few differences, like the priest is not sitting in front of the fire, but standing in front of the fire, and fire is pretty like large. And instead of pouring ghee into the fire, they pour milk mixed with honey into the fire. And instead of putting grains, they put like loaves of bread, slices of bread into the fire, like that. And they, with each oblation, they chant in old Russian language, they chant mantras glorifying Vishen, who is the supreme. It's funny enough that it's even today in Russian language, the supreme is Vse Vishni. Vse means all, and Vishni means above, one who is above. Also Vishni.
This is the Russian word for God, or?
One who is on the top, Vishni. So Vishnu, Vishni, same thing. So so they call God Vishen. And actually there is even like in India, in South India, some people called Vishnu Vishen, even today. And they glorify Vishnu and his family, which consists of demigods, like that. So they worship Vishnu together with all the demigods. And they have like Russian, demigods, range of different demigods, starting with Brahma, whom they called Svarog, because he lives in Svarga, right? That's why he's Svarog, four-headed Svarog, etc. It's, it's quite shocking how similar it is. And even in their scripture, it says that who brought Vedic culture to Russia, and that was Arjuna.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because Bhagavatam says that after Pandavas were victorious.
Right, everyone went into one direction.
That's right, and Arjuna went up north.
Oh, I see.
So, and up north to India is Russia.
Wow.
So it all correlates that
Amazing.
Arjuna brought Vedic culture to Russia. And yeah, I mean, even today, how it survived, it's like really surprising that despite of the communist rule, 70 years, some people, they preserved that faith, and they were practicing in the forests, in the mountains, away from everyone. And they preserved the whole culture.
But it's a minority, right? It must be really, really, really small. Huh?
Yes, very small, but after it was over.
But are they growing now? Because there's like a trend towards tradition in many countries. So are they kind of growing now, or are they not into preaching and growing? Or
yeah, they are. And funny enough, like many of them, they never even heard of Hare Krishnas.
oh, really?
They just practice their Russian traditional spirituality, which is Vedic.
I heard often about some people approached me about this Russian Vedas. Probably it's connected with them, right?
Yes.
And they claim that they're actually older than our Vedas, so to say. So what do you say about that?
Well, I mean, everyone has their national pride, but, it's like when Prabhupada was asked this question, how old are the Vedas? And his answer was very simple. Can you put date to the origin of knowledge? He said it's eternal. So Vedas, you cannot really date Vedas. I mean, dating based on written scripts, it's very relative kind of thing, very relative way to understand, because it was oral tradition anyway until a few thousand years ago.
So, but that's your theory now, your take, which is very interesting, is that why Russians in general, they have it in kind of their genes, they're more connected to their ancient culture, and so it's easy to establish it there.
Well, that could be one reason. But yeah, I won't be...
Yeah, of course, we cannot verify that's the one, but it's an interesting correlation.
Somehow or other. Could be Krishna's plan.
So that you were there, just a side question, is because of your interreligious work, it was connected with this? Or is this also part of interreligious work, or is this...
Actually, it started even prior to that, and it kind of helped me to realize that there is a huge potential in collaboration with other groups, and there are many groups who are very similar to us in many ways, and so it's easy for us to collaborate together.
Yeah, it's nice that you have this outlook and see the potential and are not, you're open for opportunities and possibilities.
Yeah,
I think it's very important as a preacher, right, to have a universal view.
Yeah. Well, Krishna is universal God.
Right.
Not just Indian.
Right.
Or Hindu, but he is for everybody.
Okay, Maharaj, you could tell us way more. Of course, it's kind of the start, it's how you joined.
Sure.
But time ran, so maybe you want to give some little spiritual advice, some realization, some advice for our viewers, some help for their Krishna conscious practice, something what is on your heart, what you want to share.
Yeah, I think it's really important for all of us to thoroughly study Prabhupada's legacy and based on the first purpose of ISKCON, understand very clearly what he wanted to achieve, what is the mission of Krishna consciousness, because this is something the whole world really needs. The world does not need another religion, be it whatever, even Vaishnavism. The world needs very practical solutions, and Krishna consciousness can offer those practical solutions. And yeah, we can see that Prabhupada was very, very broad-minded person, and he was making it very clear that the world is suffering due to the lack of God consciousness, and it doesn't matter if you call God Krishna or any other name, but as long as one follows the fundamental principles of faith, one will advance spiritually. And I think it would be really good for all of us to study Prabhupada's legacy thoroughly and understand this broad picture so that devotees would be able to take real responsibility for what's happening in human society and help everyone to move upward, help everyone to advance spiritually. And I believe that should be our responsibility, rather than just, be in that salvationist mood, just selfishly grabbing onto whatever Krishna consciousness offers and enjoying it to ourselves. Because we cannot enjoy in the middle of the Holocaust like that, and what's going on in the world is not a joke. So we really need to take a little bit more responsibility than what we are doing now.
Okay, thank you so much, Maharaj. It was an honor and pleasure, privilege to have you here, and that you told your amazing story. It was really amazing. And maybe we'll do another video, a second part, so to say, how it continues.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So also, my dear viewers, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please write in the video description. Please like the video, share the video. It's really an amazing story, amazing proof for Krishna consciousness. And thank you so much for watching. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.